Sandy Stubbs.
She was still chatting with a few folks.
There you go.
We're all ready for you, dear.
All right. Good morning.
Morning.
All right. So I want to first thank you all for being here on this sunny Monday morning. But we are here to introduce automatic voter registration here in the state of Wisconsin. As we all know, on May 9th, the Republicans pulled out of the budget automatic voter registration to what I would say is non-existent party issues. One thing that we've seen here in the United States is that we've seen not only blue states but red states pass automatic voter registration because we know it's good for democracy and it's a building block making sure that we institute and have more transparency throughout our process. And so as we continue to talk about this, let's be clear about one thing. 15 states in the United States have already passed automatic voter registration. And there are a total of 11 states that not only has automatic voter registration, but also has same-day registration. So we know that we are going in the right direction. So what is it? Two small but substantial changes to how voters will register. One, as they get their ID, where we're talking about their state ID or their driver's license, there will pretty much be an agreement between the Election Commission and DOT to automatically register people to vote. But if they would like to opt out, we will still have that option available to you. But also using government agencies, the application to ensure greater verification ability, greater transparency, and making sure that people have access. What it will do, it will streamline the process, making sure that people can vote. It will eliminate many barriers to voting. In the past decade, we've seen many different types of bills here in the state of Wisconsin that will restrict many people to vote. And so this is the first time, not only that we have a Democratic governor in the past decade, but we are actually looking at putting up bills that will actually encourage more people to vote here in the state of Wisconsin. Because we know that greater participation will make our government more responsible, more representative of the people who are electing folks. But what I will say is it is not a partisan issue. Again, we've had both red states and blue states pass this. And this is not a way for anybody who is not a citizen of the state of Wisconsin to vote. Again, we will have the transparency, and we will have the courage, and we will have everything that we need in these government agencies in making sure that we are streamlining this process effectively. And so with that said, many of you, don't want to necessarily hear representatives talk, but it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce the esteemed leader of the state of Wisconsin and one who is fighting for the people of the state of Wisconsin every day, our great governor, Tony Evers.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. A good Monday morning, actually. Now, I have been committed to making sure every single vote counts and that there's always the option or the opportunity for all Wisconsinites to participate in our democracy. And that's why our budget directed the Nonpartisan Legislative Reference Bureau to redraw legislative and congressional redistricting maps in a fair way. It also, our budget also required the Wisconsin Elections Commission to work with the Department of Transportation to facilitate automatic voter registration and implement the key initial registration for all eligible voters as quickly as possible. In addition, the budget modified statutory language related to university IDs used for voting, identification card receipts, and in-person absentee voting, and requires the University of Wisconsin system and technical college to issue student IDs that qualify for voting. Pretty simple stuff. Now, of course, all these things are reasonable. We spent a lot of time going across the state creating this budget, making sure that it's reflective of the people's will. We heard it before inauguration. We heard it after inauguration. We heard it when we introduced the budget. We went back on the road again and talked to people across the state, making sure that they were in concurrence with us, and they were. Well, as you know, the Republicans took all three of these issues took them out of the budget. I believe that they're absolutely important, and I know our friends in the legislature, Republicans and Democrats, will support at the end of the day separate language on these issues. So we're going to continue to fight for them, even though the Republicans have decided that voting, easy voting was not on their agenda. I think at the end of the day, we will convince them that it is on all of our agenda. It's people of Wisconsin expect it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Governor.
It's great to be here this morning, and thank you all for being here. And today it is truly all about democracy. And I want to start by thanking Governor Evers for being here today and his absolute steadfast support for our democracy. Not only did he include this language in his budget, the auto vote, but he did mention the redistricting reform, an issue that has been very dear to me for many, many years, following the Iowa model. Unfortunately, when the Republicans removed these provisions, these very important provisions, from the budget, they made it quite clear, if they hadn't already, where they stand on democracy, and it can be said they're against democracy. It wasn't always this way. When I started here back in 2001, both sides believed the more people voting, the better. We were always proud of the voting turnout in Wisconsin. As I said, Wisconsin regularly was at the top in terms of voter turnout. We passed bipartisan bills that expanded early and absentee voting and voter registration. I think many of us, both sides of the aisle, took pride in high voter participation that Wisconsin became known for. Then, in 2011, things changed. At some point, they realized that the only way they could win was by discouraging people who they believed opposed them from voting. So instead of working together to make it easier for people to vote and to register to vote, we saw more and more changes to the law designed to suppress voter participation. Voting went from a right somehow to a privilege. And we saw the passage of photo ID, limits on who can register people to vote, and attempts to restrict early voting. So I'm especially happy that we now have Governor Evers, who believes, as everyone on the Democratic side at least believes, that our democracy works best when everyone, I say everyone who is able to, is allowed and encouraged to vote. And one of the best ways to help with that is to make it as easy as possible for people to register to vote. It's been mentioned our bill will help do that by automatically registering people to vote when they get their driver's license plates, or renew their registration. It is time that we turn the tide on efforts to prevent people from voting toward doing everything we can to make it possible for everyone who is eligible to vote. Making it easier to register is the first step in that effort. Thank you, and I would like to introduce to you Representative Stubbs to add to this issue.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, and thank you all for coming today. It is an honor to stand beside my colleague and representative and senator, and it is also my great distinct honor to stand beside our governor, Governor Tony Evers, as we continue our efforts to guarantee the right to vote for all citizens and our democracy. Voting is about more than checking a box. It's about communities of our nation getting together to determine the direction that our communities must go. It's about ensuring that the people who choose to represent us have our best interest at heart when making decisions about our education, our healthcare, and yes, about our criminal justice system. We can do a better job to ensure that every Wisconsinite has access to the ballot box here in the great state of Wisconsin. There has been efforts here across the nation to restrict our access to vote. In fact, with the combination of gerrymandering, we have a state in which some representatives have the luxury of picking their voters instead of the voters picking them. There is too much online for us to continue to allow this to happen. Voters, we must pick the representative, and the representatives must respect the will of the people. I know that we can do better in the great state of Wisconsin. I know that we can do better at providing critical, life-saving health care for our citizens. I know we can do better at providing high-quality public education for our citizens. And I know we can do better at creating a safe and healthy neighborhood for our communities and our families. I know that we can do better at building a more inclusive democracy. That is why it is imperative at expanding the vote. As our great civil rights champion and Congressman John Lewis said, and I quote, "The vote is precious. It's almost sacred. Let's make sure that in the great state of Wisconsin, every Wisconsinite can use it. Again, it's sacred."
Thank you. We'll take any questions folks may have.
Can you just explain to us how the bill works and sort of the mechanics of it, what it directs the commission to do?
It would direct the commission to enter an agreement with the Department of Transportation in making sure that the information from DOT is actually going to the commission as people are being registered to vote, basically. But utilizing the data that DOT has to kind of cross-reference.
Did you receive feedback from the Elections Commission at all in developing this plan?
We have worked with the election commissions in the past. With this particular provision, we have in the past again, but with the leadership that the governor has taken and understanding that this is something that everybody, many people here in the state of Wisconsin wants, we know this is the best way to move forward right now.
Has anyone spoken with Republicans about whether they get behind this bill?
I have not personally had those conversations, but I think that there are some Republicans out there that do support this bill. I would encourage and challenge you all to ask every 63 of them in the Assembly.
Given that they just took it out of the budget, what makes you think that you can get anywhere with this bill?
Well, everything that's happening within the budget, we see is not just the whole Republican Party as being a majority of the leadership that has been pulling many of the strings. And so when we look at actually getting this as a standalone bill, we want to be able to gin up some more support, not only from those representatives that may have some heartburn, quote unquote, voting for this particular budget, but it's important that we go out and talk to the community members as well, because we know that many people who live in not only Democratic districts but Republican districts support this as well.
Governor Evers, you have a meeting with Republicans this week. Is that still on, and do you have any things that you're going to be bringing to the table specifically to talk about?
Well, since this press conference and questions are about this issue, we will definitely be meeting, and we'll definitely be talking about this. But it's interesting when you talk about voting being, some people view it as making voting easier as a democratic ideal. I can't think of anything that is more bipartisan than getting people to vote. You think about the election coming up in the presidential election, you talk about the interests on both sides around this issue. We should be, shooting for 80-90% turnout. We have a golden opportunity in the state of Wisconsin to show what democracy looks like, and it looks like what happens in the voting booth. So we're looking forward to having that Republican support. Clearly, they took it out of the budget for a number of different reasons, but it's something that is well worth the important value that we all believe in, and that's voting.
If the Senate passes all four of the abortion bills that the Assembly passed, do you plan on vetoing all four of them?
I'm not going to respond to questions that deviate from this topic.
Governor, if over the weekend your spokeswoman said that the Republican leaders won't deal with Maggie because she's a woman, do you believe that they won't talk with her on this issue or any other issue because she's a woman?
Or I'm focusing on voting right now.
Well, if they want to talk about voting rights, do you think they wouldn't talk with her about it, or would they only talk to you about it?
I believe what a great segue. That's why you are there and I'm here. Anyway, great question. Yes, if I believe they should be able to talk to Maggie Gow about voting rights. Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Have a good day.